All right, this is for chapter 19, and let me just say that I made this one up, and the numbers are horrible, but it is what it is. So let's do this, and this would make me like so thankful that we have computer technology that I could write a program to do this. But here we go, long-handed. We've got 13 advertising accounts were randomly assigned to one of 5 different groups. Each group was given a different emphasis to approach in the type of advertising. At the end of the year, the increase in profits of the 13 accounts were recorded and analyzed. The results are given below. Complete the ANOVA table and test at the 2% level whether there's a significant difference in the average decrease of profits among the 5 groups. Okay, so you can see here we've got this divided up into 5 groups. The first thing you're going to want to do, and this is pretty easy, is you want to find each group's individual mean. So remember to do that. I'm going to zoom in, and in order to save time, I went ahead and did this, but you're just going to add these together and divide by 2. So I showed my work on this one, so I get my mean here. So be careful when you get over here. Notice there's 3 of them, so you want to add them together and divide by 3. So I showed that right there. So you want to do that first. Okay, then you want to find the overall mean. And all you have to do is add these 5 means together and then just divide by 5. Okay, so there's that value right there. Nice little gross value. Okay, so that's easy enough. So one thing you might want to make sure, if you don't have it already written down, if you weren't in class, but again, you need to know the overall mean, and that's this double bar. Add up all the means of each group. Remember, there's 1 to K, that's for each group, and there were 5 groups, and then divide by however many there were. So you will want to know that equation. The 2 equations you also need to know are how to find the sum of squares between the groups and the sum of squares for the total. So here are the 2 equations, and I got a little bit of my peanut butter and jelly sandwich right there. But notice this, I want you to look at this. You might want to write this down, but this is the number in the group. There's a little 1 there, so my first group. This is the number in my second group, and you keep going. So in this case, I'm going to have all the way to 5 because there are 5 groups. But notice it wants the mean of the group minus the overall mean squared, and then we're going to add all those up together. So when I do this for this particular problem, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so right here. So I am going to add up. What it says to take, there's 2 in this group, so I would say 2. My mean was 1,025 minus my overall mean, which was 1878.4 squared. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to keep going like this, and then I'm going to take 2. My mean here was 1,600 minus my overall mean, which was 18, and I'm going to square it. Don't forget to do that. So I went ahead and did this, and you can see, it's right here. What I want you to be careful of, there's 2 in this group, but notice in group 4, there's 3. So right here, you're going to see 3. And I took the overall mean, which you can see it right there, 2567, minus the overall mean. And then last but not least, there's 4 in this group. So notice right here, I've got 4. Now, when I hit this in my calculator, and I don't care if you just copy this down, if you want to test me and put it in your calculator, you can. Ridiculously huge number. I did this in my calculator. I added these 3 together, hit equals, and then I put plus, and I kept going. Otherwise, you run out of space. Okay, your calculator won't take that many digits. So that's one way to do that. Okay, so that value right there, that's the sum of squares between. I put that in there right there. So you have to know how to find that value. I can promise on a test there won't be 13 because there's 13 of these, and they won't be as big in numbers, but you just still need to know how to do it, okay? So I wouldn't worry about, I'm going to show you here in a minute how to find that value. The other one you have to know is how to find the total. So let's go back to my little equation sheet. Here's the equation on how to find the total. So what this says is I'm going to add up, that's a summation sign, and each observation, so I'm going to have 13 of these because I had 13 observations. You're going to take each observation minus the overall mean and then square it. So you're going to have to write really tiny. So let me show you what I mean on this one. Okay, so each individual observation, So here, my first observation was 1,200. So I would do 1,200 minus, and let me just tell you, that's 1878 point, what was it, 4 squared, plus, and then my next observation was 850. Minus 1878.4. Now, you're going to have to do this for every single number, and there's 13 of them. I tell you what, when I did it, I stored this number. You can either store it in memory or as an answer. So I would hit 1200 minus, and then I would hit my answer button. I didn't want to hit this 13 times, but it works. This particular problem, I went ahead and wrote it out again to save time on the video, and it's really gross. You can see here when I did it, and again, I'm okay with you. You have to turn this in for points. Another way to write this, let me just say this. You could write this like this to be really lazy. Make sure you do a double bar, okay? And that way, it doesn't take up as much space. Plus, okay, and then you would go all the way to the very end. And notice my very last observation is 2900. And so it would be minus the overall mean squared. So that would be a nice lazy way. But again, I enter that halfway through. I didn't even go halfway through. I noticed I was running out of room. So I wrote my total in right there, which I'm sure you can't even see. So if you want to practice with that, that's fine. Test me. I only did it one time, so this could be wrong. But that's the value I got. And so you want to be sure and write that in. So let me just state again. You have to manually be able to find the first number, the between groups total, and the last number. When you get ready to do your own, make sure you show all your work, okay? To get this value, if you weren't here in class, remember these two have to add up to give you this value. So just subtract, and that will give you your value right there. Okay, let's figure out, how do you find your degrees of freedom? Remember, for the degrees of freedom here, it's the number of groups minus 1. So I had 5 groups here, so my degrees of freedom would be 4. The total here is the number of total observations, and I had, it's blurry all of a sudden, right? I had 13 observations, so it's always the total observations minus 1. So in this case, this would be 12. So I know this one has to be 8, because these two have to add up to this one right there. All right, so now, how do we find the mean of squares? You don't need to show your work in here, okay, because there's not a lot of space. But listen, here's how you do it. You take this number divided by 4. And forgot to bring my calculator, so we're going to take a little journey. There it is. See, I should have worked that out beforehand. You get to see all this exciting stuff. I know my phone, I have a hard time pausing or I lose it. Okay, so I'm just going to do that real quick. I'm going to hit that on my calculator and see what we get. 7877865. And I get this. 1969466.37. Okay. And then to find this value, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this value right here and divide it by 8. So it should be pretty straightforward. So I'm going to do that real quick in my calculator. And what does that say? 612,7789.8, and I'm going to divide that guy by 8. So I've got this 765,973.725. Okay, so we've got these two values in here. Here's the important value right there. That's the value we need. You're going to take this number, basically divided by this number. Gross. So I'm going to put that in my calculator real quick. 19,69466.37. I'm going to divide it by, I'm going to hit my answer for my previous. And this is a good value. This makes me happy. 2.57. Now, usually your book gives you this value. I want you just to go ahead and find that value. You're going to have to go back to your t-table and look up 2.5, go to 2.57 with 4 degrees of freedom and see what you get and just come up with an estimate. It's probably going to be between two values. And so find that value right there. And then we need to write up our actual analysis, which I'm going to do, but I'm going to make it a separate video.